Have you ever wondered where the spooky traditions of Halloween originated? Our tale takes us back in time, over 2,000 years ago, to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. This celebration marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the long, dark winter, a time of year often associated with human death. The Celts, who lived in what is now Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France, believed that on the night before the new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, when it was believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to Earth. In addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, the Celts thought that the presence of these otherworldly spirits made it easier for the Druids, or Celtic priests, to predict the future. These prophecies were an important source of comfort and direction during the long, dark winter. To commemorate the event, Druids built huge sacred bonfires where people gathered to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, and attempted to tell each other's fortunes. When the celebration was over, they relit their hearth fires from the sacred bonfire to help protect them during the coming winter. These rituals were conducted with the hope of warding off harmful spirits, ensuring the return of the sun after a harsh winter, and gaining insights into the future. But as the wheel of time turned, these ancient traditions did not vanish into the mists of history. Instead, they evolved and traveled, carried by the winds of change and the waves of migration. They crossed vast oceans and countless generations, finally reaching the shores of a new land. As time passed, these ancient traditions evolved and traveled, eventually reaching the shores of America, where Halloween as we know it began to take shape. Now, how did this ancient Celtic festival end up becoming a popular holiday in America, you might wonder? The answer lies in the waves of immigration from Ireland and Scotland during the 19th century. These immigrants, in search of a new life, brought with them their traditions, beliefs, and celebrations, Halloween being one of them. As these immigrants settled across the country, they shared their customs with their new neighbors. Initially, Halloween was most widely celebrated in the areas where these Irish and Scottish communities had settled. Over time, however, the celebration began to spread. Imagine, if you will, a time when the autumn air was crisp and the leaves were a riot of colors. The immigrants, longing for the familiarity of their home traditions, would gather around blazing bonfires, telling ghostly tales and dancing to the music of their homeland. These gatherings were not only a way to stay connected to their roots, but also an opportunity to share their culture with their new American neighbors. As the years went by, these traditions started to evolve and adapt to the new environment. The American society, being a melting pot of different cultures, began to incorporate Halloween into its fabric, giving it a unique flavor. Halloween was initially seen as an exotic import, a curiosity that was celebrated by those who had brought it over. However, by the mid-20th century, it had become a widely accepted part of the American cultural calendar. The spooky tales, the dressing up, the jack-o'-lanterns, all these elements started to take on a distinctly American character. But as Halloween became more popular, it also started to change. The holiday began to lose some of its original religious overtones, reflecting the secular nature of American society. Instead, it started to transform into a more community-centered holiday. It became a time for neighborhoods to come together, for children to dress up and trick or treat, and for adults to enjoy parties and haunted houses. Over time, Halloween began to lose its religious overtones and started to transform into a more community-centered holiday. It's a fascinating journey, isn't it? From the ancient Celtic Samhain to the American Halloween, this celebration has truly evolved while retaining its essence of mystery and fun. So how did we go from warding off spirits to asking our neighbors for candy? Quite a leap, isn't it? Let's delve into the evolution of these Halloween customs that we've come to know and love. First on the list is the carving of jack-o'-lanterns. This tradition traces its roots back to an old Irish myth about a man named Stingy Jack, who tricked the devil and was denied entry into both heaven and hell. As a result, Jack was condemned to roam the earth with only a burning coal to light his way, which he carried in a carved-out turnip. Irish immigrants brought this tradition to America, where pumpkins, native to the continent and plentiful during autumn, became the go-to choice for these lanterns. Next, we have the tradition of wearing costumes. The Celts believed that on Samhain, The boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. They wore costumes and masks during their festivities to mimic the evil spirits or appease them. This practice was adapted over time, becoming a way for people to disguise themselves as they went from house to house asking for food or money, a practice that later evolved into what we now know as trick-or-treating. And speaking of trick-or-treating, this tradition has roots in the medieval practice of souling or guising. Children and sometimes poor adults would dress up in costumes and go around door to door during Hallowmass, begging for food or money in exchange for songs and prayers. This was known as souling. The tradition of guising, where children would disguise themselves and go from door to door for treats, originated in Scotland and Ireland and was brought to America by immigrants. From warding off evil spirits to a community-centered holiday of fun and candy, the traditions of Halloween have certainly evolved over time. But through all these changes, the spirit of celebration, community, and a touch of the supernatural have remained at the heart of Halloween. These traditions have become the backbone of our modern Halloween celebrations, but they have evolved significantly from their ancient origins. So, how does the ancient celebration of Samhain compare to our modern Halloween festivities? As we delve into the past, we find that Halloween, or Samhain as the Celts called it, was a time of fear and respect for the dead. The Celts lit bonfires and wore costumes not for fun, but to ward off ghosts and appease the spirits who they believed roamed the earth on this night. Offerings of food and drink were left out to placate these spirits and ensure a bountiful year ahead. Contrast this with our modern Halloween, where fear has given way to fun. Ghosts, goblins, and witches no longer inspire dread, but instead serve as playful costume inspirations. The bonfires of old have been replaced by intricately carved jack-o'-lanterns, their flickering candlelight a nod to the fires of yesteryears. Instead of leaving out offerings for spirits, children now go from door to door, uttering the famous phrase, "trick or treat." The treats they receive are far from the food and drink offerings of the past. They're more likely to be candy bars, lollipops, and other sweet delights. The commercialization of Halloween is also a stark contrast to its ancient roots. Today, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, with costumes, decorations, and candy sales reaching astronomical heights. It's less about warding off evil spirits and more about parties, parades, and having a spooktacular time. Yet, despite these changes, the core essence of Halloween remains. Like the Celts, we still gather together on this special night. We celebrate, we remember, we share stories and laughter, creating a sense of community that transcends the boundaries of time. While the Halloween we know today may seem far removed from its ancient Celtic origins, the spirit of celebration, remembrance, and community remains. The faces of Halloween may have changed, the customs may have evolved, but at its heart, Halloween remains a time of connection, a bridge between the past, the present, and the spirit world. So, what does Halloween look like today? As we step into the 21st century, Halloween has taken on a life of its own. It has transcended its Celtic roots and American influence to become a global phenomenon. No longer confined to the chilly autumn nights of the Northern Hemisphere, Halloween has spread its spectral wings to every corner of the globe. In Europe, the holiday is celebrated with a blend of old and new traditions. In Ireland, where Halloween originated, bonfires are still lit as they were in ancient times. Meanwhile, in France, Halloween has gained popularity over the past 2 decades, with costume parties and events echoing the American way of celebration. Across the Pacific in Asia, Halloween festivities are also in full swing. In Japan, the holiday is marked by elaborate costume parades that bring a vibrant splash of color to the streets of Tokyo. In the Philippines, Halloween merges with the traditional Day of the Dead, creating a unique fusion of customs. Down under in Australia and New Zealand, Halloween is a relatively new addition to the calendar. However, it's rapidly gaining popularity with costume parties, trick-or-treating, and haunted houses becoming a common sight. Meanwhile, back in the United States, Halloween has evolved into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Haunted attractions, ranging from eerie hayrides to spine-chilling haunted houses, draw thrill-seekers from far and wide. Pumpkin carving has turned into an art form, and costumes have become increasingly creative and elaborate. Yet, amidst the candy corn and cobwebs, the essence of Halloween remains the same. It's a time to celebrate the cycle of life and death, a moment to remember our ancestors and those who've passed on. It's a chance to step into another character's shoes, to face our fears, and to embrace the unknown with a sense of fun and playfulness. While Halloween continues to evolve, its ancient roots remind us that at its heart, Halloween is a celebration of the cycle of life and death, a time to remember our ancestors, and a chance to face our fears with a sense of fun and playfulness.